Hi, everybody. We are here with the Common Book Show, and today it's Richard and Paul Dragem he is our out of town guest here to discuss whatever, and of course Tom on drums and James on location wherever his location might be. He's in a car. James from a car. Are you driving down south?
No, just taking care of a few things.
Oh, you're doing errands and doing the show at the same time. Yeah,
That's devotion.
now I must say, James, you really impressed me. Okay, so today I really have not anything prepared because I went to the art festival with Greg this afternoon, and
What's the name of this art festival?
the Allentown Art Festival.
I see.
Yeah. So, but the book I'm actually reading two books right now. I'm still reading the book, gosh, oh my God, my brain stops working so fast. Jane Austen book, and I'm listening to this book by this child star whose name I don't remember now that I have it off my phone.
Oh, I still have it.
She's a child. Okay, all right. Jeanette McCurdy. She was a child star on Nickelodeon TV on some show called iCarly, and so she was really emotionally abused by her mother, and it's hard to listen to in some respects because she had this eating disorder because her mother wanted her to be 89 pounds. She said, you need to stay 89 pounds so you can remain a child actor, and so you don't get your period, and so you don't start developing breasts. Her mother was telling her that she wanted to stunt her growth so she could remain a child star. And so she developed eating disorders, and she had bulimia, and I mean, it was quite a. I'm in the middle of the book, so I don't know how it ends, but she lived to write a book, so I guess she's okay. But that's I love that. Libby, is it called?
Libby?
I'm trying to remember. I got to look at the. I didn't sleep. I didn't get my full 8 hours of sleep last night, so I'm even less. My memory's even less than. Yeah, it's called Libby. Libby is great. Libby, you can any.
Is that Libby?
Um,
I'll look it up myself.
yeah, I believe it. Hang on, I got to get out of this. I'm not that good with this phone yet. It's a new phone. Libby, and any library in the country, I think, if you put your library card number in, you can borrow books, either ebooks or you can borrow books on tape. I still say on tape. It's not on tape. But books you can listen to, audiobooks, or you can listen to, or you can read the books on your phone. But I like to listen to things while I'm working. So
you've got some good audiobooks off this.
I listened to a couple, but I forgot I had it on my phone until they gave me a lot of apps when I got this new phone that I didn't want, like games and stuff. So I was deleting apps, and I saw it again, and I said, oh, I forgot about this Libby app. And I just went in, I saw what books were available as an audiobook, and it was like the second book, and I said, I'm going to listen to this. And it's interesting. I didn't do any research. It was just plopped it. And that you only get 7 days to listen to it. So I think it was 12 hours of listening. So I'm halfway through. But yeah, you listen to a lot of things, audio.
Oh, yeah. A ton.
Yeah.
Most of my knowledge comes through audio. Well, I would say about 70-30. Because often when I'm listening to the audio, I'm reading at the same time.
You're reading the same thing or something different?
Like I'll get inspired because there'll be something in the audio.
Oh, that'll inspire. Yes, I do the same thing.
It might even be like a word that they say.
Yeah.
Like, what does that word mean? I'm looking up the word while I'm still listening.
See, I can't do that. I'll stop I'll stop it and
Yeah.
I will look up whatever it is that I don't understand or a word that I haven't come across before. This isn't this isn't exactly an intellectual book, but it is really emotionally charged material, and I find that it actually helped me finish writing the story about my boyfriend's parents, or mostly his father, who I had adopted as my father figure. And I was having a really hard time writing it because it was wrenching. And some of the stuff that she wrote about her eating disorder and about some sexual encounters she had before she gave up her virginity, I thought, I can finish, though I had like blank spots where the story needed to come together, like two pieces of the story. So I sat down yesterday and I finished it and I sent it to Lori because she does my proofreading for me. So I was able to finish it. And when I read it, because I always read it to Greg before I send it off to Lori. And while I was reading it to Greg, I was crying. It was the painful parts. And I thought, I was so sure. I've had so much therapy. And I thought for sure I had really gotten myself out of that was no longer bothering me. Those things were no longer bothering me. But apparently, there's still a residual. But I think by writing it and by putting it out there in the world, I'm going to get rid of it finally. There's a couple other things that are going to be in the. There are some funny parts to the second book, but not quite as much as the first book because that was all about my childhood and. But this one it's a little different, but it's okay because it's going to be out in the world and it's going to be out of my head.
So this is a father figure who you wanted and then rejected?
He was my boyfriend's father,
yeah.
and he was someone who had been in prison for 17 years. And he was in prison almost all of Paul's life. And
did you reject him as a father figure then?
No. This was
You wanted him as a father figure.
before. It was before I met him, but I knew all about it. They were very honest with me. Paul was honest, and Vicky, who was Dick's wife, they were all honest. He'd been in prison. He'd been away. He never was around to raise Paul. Vicky had to raise Paul from by herself, and I accepted that. There's the song, Steely Dan song. Any world that you're welcome to is better than the one I come from. Any world that I'm welcome to is better than. So that's the song I'm using because the title is Phonographic Memories for this book. So that's what they were. They were kind to me. He was kind to me, and he taught me a lot of stuff about how to live my life. Don't do it. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Don't, if you want something, go after it. And this, I was a vulnerable teenage girl and all this stuff. And nobody had ever told me that before because everybody was always, I had been in a very abusive family. So I was nuts about him, and they introduced me to some really horrible things as a teenager. They used to take me to topless bars, and they used to they'd take me drinking I wasn't drinking. They would buy me pop, but they'd take me to these bars that were like longshoreman bars, and they would just bring me everywhere. They were. It was. Oh, and he was stealing money off the bar, and he would tell me that the guy I'm stealing this from, he's a chump, and chumps deserve to be stolen from. And, and I knew it was wrong, but I thought, well, maybe he's right. Maybe this guy, So I was just a kid, and I didn't know really. Anyway, but whatever happened, then how it ends is that his wife used to try to kill herself all the time. And what I didn't know is that she never told me, and he never let on, but he used to make her sit in a room naked while men masturbated, and they would pay him for that. And I didn't know this because they never told me. They never let me know about this. And so she kept trying to kill herself. And so the last time, about 3 hours after she took the pills, Dick called me and said she did it again. And I said, did you call the ambulance? And because I thought she just was depressed. I didn't know anything else. He says, no. He said, I haven't called the ambulance. I wanted to call you and see what you thought. And I said, well, call the goddamn ambulance because, and she died from that overdose.
Do you think it was from the fact that the call wasn't made right away?
Right. He did it on purpose. So he was implicated in her death. But because he cried so much in the hospital, I started thinking, well, maybe I'm imagining things, maybe, whatever. And then,
Was he crying because of the fact that he was responsible?
No, I mean, it seemed like he was crying because he was upset she was dead. But, within a month from that date, he offered me money to sleep with him. And it was like having your father molest you.
Sure.
And of course I didn't do it, but, and I told him, I said, you know what, Dick, you need me because you don't have very many friends. You really need me as a friend. I said, are you sure you want to ask me this? Because if you persist in this, I will never talk to you again. And then he said, oh, you think you're too good for me? And he was saying all this stuff to me. And I never spoke to him again after. He actually called me once to ask me for money, and I told him no. But, yeah, I said, you are the one who taught me how to be strong and how to say no when something doesn't feel right, and this is definitely not right. I said, so you're the one who taught me how to be this strong. I said, and now, I said, see how, isn't this ironic?
You. Spoiler alert, you said no. My God. Is there anybody who's surprised?
Oh, shut up, James. Just shut up. Well, no, of course. I mean, I think anyone would have. I mean, first of all, he was sleeping with this woman who may or may not have been his biological daughter. Now, I didn't know any of this stuff before, but after I severed ties with him, I went to talk to Vicky's sister, and she told me everything. Oh, my God, she knew all this stuff. I said, Rosie, why didn't somebody tell me this? She said, Vicky never wanted you to know because she always loved the fact that you loved Dick the same way she did before she found out what he was like. And she loved that you kept up that fantasy for her in her mind, that he was a good guy. So she never wanted to. And I said, but somebody should have told me because this is, what a horrible, maybe I could have saved her. Maybe I could have gotten her. She said, do you think I didn't try? Do you think I didn't try to get her away from him? So, yeah, that was my story. That was hard to write.
So, so you had this father figure in your life.
Yes.
Which was kind of ambiguous because there were things you liked and things you didn't like.
Well, no, because he had told me the story of his life, and his sister used to lock up food. He was raised by his sister. His mother died at childbirth. His father deserted him. And by the time he was 8 years old, he was sleeping in a Deco restaurant and going to school from the Deco restaurant. The guy that owned the restaurant would give him toast and coffee in the morning before he went to school, and that was all the food he had except for what he could steal. So I thought, my God, anybody who grows up like that's going to be twisted. So, that was my rationale, that I rationalized, he had a goodness inside of him, but he had so much painful experience that he couldn't be a good, you don't know.
That's a fascinating way of understanding it.
You don't know what goes through a 16-year-old girl's head when this stuff is happening because I didn't have enough information.
Now, Paul.
Yes.
Did your father have basic goodness in him, but his history prevented him from showing it to you?
I'm sure it did.
Maybe you're judging him too harshly.
No, I didn't know any better. I was 3 years old when they left, so I have no,
But you stayed in touch with your father
barely.
enough to say that,
He's worthless.
say he
Well,
rejected the father figure.
Okay, so there is a when the first time I went to
He wasn't even a father figure. It was just,
it was just your biological
there.
father. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I went to therapy, when my mother was starting to fail, and I needed 18 months, I had to deal with my mother for 18 more months, and I went to the cognitive behavioral therapist, and I told him, I said, look, I have 18 months before I leave here. I need you to help me with some strategies for dealing with my mother for the next 18 months. And I explained everything that was going on with my mother, and he said, get out of that. He said the same thing. He said, get out of that house right now. She's toxic, and the relationship, it's really affecting you and really hurting you. And I said, I can't. I said, I need you to tell me what to do to deal with it for the next 18 months. So he gave me some strategies, if you can only call me if it's an emergency. And you have to be very firm on the phone.
You mean you say that to your mother?
Well, yes.
Or you say that, or that's regarding your therapist?
No,
Okay.
that's to my mother,
Okay.
because especially at work. So what I would say is when she'd call, is this an emergency? Well, no, but I just thought, I can't talk to you at work unless it's an emergency. Is this an emergency? No, it's not an emergency. I said, well, then I'll talk to you later. Click. So I had to do that, and I had to, because otherwise she was calling me 7-8 times at work. But then something else started happening. She started to fall. So the police, not the police, but the medical alert people were calling me. And sometimes I'd have to go home twice a day.
Ooh. James, did you have a father figure in your life?
Thankfully, yes.
Well,
And do you have fond memories of that father figure?
Yes.
he's not alive yet, though.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, my father, my biological father, was fine. He just died when I was 8 years old. So, I mean, I shouldn't say fine. We didn't have a relationship because he didn't have a relationship with his children until his children were at the age of reason. So it was just, he was the disciplinarian. And so we didn't really have a relationship. But it was, my stepfather who was the difficult person. And he had a thing because he didn't think my mother took it hard enough when his son was killed in Vietnam. And so he told my mother, he said, you don't understand what it's like to lose a child. I'm going to make sure you lose one. And that was me, because I was the only one at home. So he would periodically try to kill me. And, he didn't succeed, except the one time at the door when he was really drunk, and I thought for sure he had a 30-30 rifle in my stomach. I thought for sure he was going to kill me, and I somehow got really calm, very calm. And I said, you know what, go ahead, do it. I said, it'll be over for me. I said, you're going to have to go to prison for the rest of your life. Am I worth it? Is it worth it to you to go to prison and be incarcerated for the rest of your life for me? And he dropped it. So but that's what I was dealing with at home. So this guy that was in prison for 17 years that was nice to me, he seemed like a great guy. So yeah, anyway.
The better of the worst. Right?
Yeah, so I finished writing that story, and I sent it to Lori, but I'm waiting to hear from her because I told her, I said, it's really harsh, and when you read it, you're not going to believe parts of it, but it's all true. So, yeah, that's a lot. That's why I never have to make anything up as a writer, ever.
Just not.
But, so, yeah. Oh, well, enough about me. We're already 20 minutes into the show. Richard, what do you have on your list this week?
Jacques Lacan.
Jacques Lacan? Jacques Lacan?
Shaka Khan.
Chocolate. And, okay, go ahead.
Jacques Lacan started writing his books on psychology in the 1960s
Okay.
and developed a following very similar to the trajectory of Sigmund Freud. Like, nobody takes him seriously, but he gets a devoted following.
Okay.
Very similar. And then in the 80s, he really seemed to take off in terms of being studied at school.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew people who were Lacan aficionados,
Mm-hmm.
but they never could explain to me, like why do you find him so fascinating? What is it about? Well, anyway, I was listening to a lecture today
Okay.
on Jacques Lacan, and I'd like to tell you about it.
Okay.
And I'd like to dedicate this to our friend James Walker, because I couldn't
Uh-oh,
stop
James.
thinking about James when I was listening about this lecture. As you know, James is notorious for his concept of the average woman.
I don't know. I don't know if he's yeah. He has some interesting ideas.
I've heard him use that expression a lot.
James has very interesting ideas.
So here's what I wrote down when I was listening to the lecture.
Okay.
Lacan says that men fear women because women have power over men. The ultimate masculine fear is the fear of emasculation, which means that without a woman, a man is not truly a man. Therefore, men know that their very existential identity lies within the hands of women. It's also why many men will make women feel unsafe to affirm that men are the strong, authoritative figure. Men are afraid that women will laugh at them. Women are afraid that men will kill them.
Wow.
Chivalry involves idolizing an imaginary woman because of fear of the real woman. As soon as you treat someone as a sacred object of desire, as the ideal of grace and beauty and femininity, you've actually reduced them to an abstract concept.
Do you want to know something? This is so interesting because today Greg ran into a friend and he told the friend about the book, How to Emotionally Satisfy a Woman. And the friend was in a hurry, and he said, "Okay, give me one concept that I can hang on to. I'm having problems with women right now. Give me one concept." And Greg told him, he said, "See the woman for who she is, not for who you want her to be." He said, "If you follow that," he said, that's the beginning. So that's what he's saying. That's if I see head shaking, James. So anyway, that is what this guy's saying. The Lacan is what that's kind of his idea. I don't know how much I agree with all of that, but that's an interesting thing to think about in relation to James.
It applies on a number of levels. You know, we have a friend who we call the mystery guest.
Yes.
He had a dream where there was a violent pounding on his front door. When he opened the door, there was a military man there, and the military man pointed at him and said, "I'm here to tell you that you are not a real man because you don't have a girlfriend."
Oh my gosh.
And
He
it's
has
exactly
such-
what Lacan is saying right
He
here.
has such vivid dreams. I don't agree.
Oh, it gets even stranger. You know who's standing next to the military man? A child dressed up in the same uniform as the military man. So, but anyway, aside from
Wow.
all that, but that thing, he's accused of not being a real man because he doesn't have a girlfriend, which is exactly what Lacan says, that all men have this in the back of their mind.
But
I'm nothing unless I have a woman.
What do you think of that, James? Do you think that's a true statement?
I think it misses the mark some. See, women can't be considered Mother Nature in that what a woman does decide is, do you deserve to procreate and put your genes into the future? And if no woman thinks you're good enough for that, then she's literally saying you should die out.
Well,
And
that's an interesting idea too. But I mean, I know personally, as a woman, and this is of course different than a man, but as a woman, when I made the decision that I was not going to seek out a relationship, I had men in my life. I had you in my life. I had Greg in my life. I have other friends, Dennis. But I decided not to pair bond because I didn't think I knew what I was doing, because I kept making mistakes, big mistakes. Obviously, I didn't have a role model, you know. but I felt
Did you ever wonder if you could get somebody to have a child with you?
Did I ever wonder that? No, I could have my own children.
And that's the point.
Yeah,
God,
right.
God, that without someone deeming them worthy of that honor.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't necessarily deem my daughter's father worthy of that honor. It just sort of happened, you know. Just
Well, what year was it that you?
it was 1970. It was 19. My daughter was born in 75, right before.
Okay, so every woman who has had a child after 1962, on some level, decided to allow that child to be born.
Right. I would never. Okay. I am pro. Now we're going to get into this. I am pro-choice, but for me, I would never choose to have an abortion. So I would never do that because of my own feelings about it. But I believe women should make their own decisions. And
However,
I didn't think that Ray was a horrible, genetic option, but I didn't. And a lot of women just get pregnant, James. They just get pregnant and they have those babies.
and this is the point. There are guys out there that women will say, I would never marry Frank. I just had 3 babies with him.
So is that better? Or, I mean, so are you saying that in order to, I mean, are you saying it's more important for the woman to have your baby or to be married to you? I don't get it.
As far as guys are concerned, it proves more that you're willing to have Frank's baby than that you would consider marrying Frank.
Wow, that's an interesting idea. I think that, though, I don't know that I think agreeing to marry somebody and to have them in your life as your life partner is a bigger, well, having a child is a huge commitment. But a woman can, and many women have, including myself, raise their child alone. And I made that decision that I would rather do that than,
Exactly. You made the decision that you will have Frank's child and shoulder all of the responsibility. Frank gets to walk away and his child goes into the future.
Well, okay, yeah. But, I mean, I'm still in touch with this man. It's not like I threw him out of my life. He's still my daughter's father.
I'm just saying, if you're looking at the difference between having children and being married, having a child for a guy is something that means more than marrying that guy. Because
how many? I don't know. In the neighborhood I grew up, if you got pregnant and most guys would just reject. There was no DNA back then. They'd say, "Oh, she sleeps with everybody." They weren't interested in if it was their child or not. They just didn't want to take care of it or take care of you. That's the neighborhood I grew up in.
That's the Frank. The Franks just want to have sex. And if they have 18 children while they're doing it, oh well. Meanwhile, there's a bunch of guys who can't even get a woman to go and sit with them in a restaurant and have conversation over a salad.
Yeah, I don't know why those women are making those decisions, because I'm only one person and I can tell you why I made my decisions, but that's all I can give you, because I find that women, as just like men, women are unique. Each woman is different, and just like every man is unique and different. So I can tell you stories of why some friends of mine had abortions, or why some friends of mine decided not to marry the man that got them pregnant. I can tell you individual stories, but they're all different.
Well, of course they're all different. Just like there's a bunch of men married to women who won't cook, won't clean, and won't have sex with them, and yet they're supposed to believe that being married to that woman and taking care of the children that she had with Frank is a higher form of compliment than having his children and finding Mike to pay for everything.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm following you. I don't know that I my ex-husband didn't have a lot of money, and so I did not insist on a lot of money from him. And then he married somebody else, and he's got 3 children with her. So I didn't need him to. I mean, he gave her a small amount of money every week, and that was okay, because I didn't. It was my decision to leave.
Mr. Dracham, were you taught that a man is not a man unless he has a woman?
No,
Do you feel that way?
no, because what do you say to a gay guy? Like, he doesn't have a woman, he's got a guy.
Well, in that case, it would be a man without a partner. You know.
Well, right, but the women part of it is no. Why? I mean, there's a lot of people that, they'll date, they'll go out and have a good time. They don't have to have a relationship. Doesn't make them not a man.
Right.
Not having
I don't see it. I don't see that either. I mean, I know.
So is a woman not a woman if she doesn't have a man?
Well, you know what
The
thing is, there are a lot of women who feel that without that they don't have a man in their lives because. All right.
because they're difficult.
Who is Jennifer? Jennifer, do you think a man feeling that way is ingrained in them by their mother and watching their mother? Yeah, Jennifer, I don't know. I think that there's a pair bonding thing, and I don't really. I mean, I've read some stuff about it in anthropology about how a man and a woman connect and become the pair bond, and they are just like some birds pair bond forever. But human beings are primates, and primates don't do that necessarily. I don't know.
Human males were not meant to be monogamous.
I don't see that in primates. Primates are, the women have the kids and the men, there's one male that has all the kids, and then the rest of the males have to fight for it until that one male gets old, and then he's taken over by one other male who creates all the children and the female gorillas or whatever. And the women go away once they have they don't want anything to do with the guys. Once they've got their babies, they're done. So we're primates. Maybe that's the way we are hardwired, and we've been socialized to believe something different. Ah! You were on your way over here. You got to get a headset. They're hanging there. I don't know. It's a yellow. I think.
Mr. Windsor, which seat should he take?
Why don't you?
Should he take the one over here?
By where Greg usually sits? That one? All right, because he could sit here where Greg usually sits.
He could sit where Greg sits, and I'll give him the blue headset. Right there.
Can't be on camera.
Oh, well, either way.
Wouldn't that be camera D?
Oh, well, no, yeah, you can sit there.
Okay.
Okay,
There
sit
you
here.
go, James. And then your headset is right over here.
Yeah, it's hanging on the side. That was really funny.
Like magic. Just appeared.
He walked off of the screen into the room.
What do you think of Mr. Drajem's latest comment? Human males were not meant to be monogamous.
I would agree with that.
Turn up blue.
Yeah, turn up a little. Well, I don't know that I don't think that humans we have this, we've created this society that has all these rules, and yet we have all this DNA with primates that and the primates don't act like we act. So maybe we're just primates.
Advanced primates.
Well, that's a matter of opinion.
Well, I mean, some, yeah, I suppose.
I guess we do write the books, so
Right.
I guess you could say that we are advanced.
Well, historically speaking, 17 women reproduced for every one male who did.
Well, with primates, it's always one alpha male, and the alpha male takes care of all the women, he impregnates them all, and then eventually, when he gets old, some other secondary male will come in and beat the shit out of him, and then they'll be.
Well, it's just not primates. It's lions and it's other animals and it's wolves. And
Yeah, but with cats, they do pair bond for the duration of that period where the male lion will watch the kids while the female goes out to hunt.
Right.
So there is
But
a
she'll have
period
a
of
bunch.
time.
But they'll have a bunch of females.
Right, but well, with one male,
Yeah, all the animals. That
I don't know. That's that.
the only animals I know that stay together are like penguins.
Well, there are some, pigeons pair bond.
Do they? Doves too do.
Yeah, they're the same kind of bird.
Oh.
And swans do, and
Wow.
Geese, maybe.
There's a lot of them. Yeah,
Yeah,
look
there's-
at this.
Okay.
Wolves,
monogamous.
Yeah.
eagles, seahorses, barn owls,
Yeah.
gibbons, albatrosses,
Oh, gibbons! See, gibbons are primates.
beavers, penguins, pigeons, red fox, mouse, gray fox.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. I didn't realize all those. I know seahorses do because the male carries the baby like in his body somehow. I don't know how that works exactly, but I remember hearing about that. But I had a pigeon when we lived in New York. We had two pigeons that used to sit on the windowsill, and because we lived on the 6th floor, there were no
Everybody had pigeons.
right. There were no screens on the windows, and it didn't matter because we were above the bug line. The bugs didn't come up that high. So I used to open the windows, and the pigeons started coming in the house. And Bernice was the female, and Monster Pigeon was the male. And Monster Pigeon, it was because this is how he cooed. Coo! Coo! It was a really deep voice pigeon. And they came back every year. Every year they would come in the house. And not only did they come in the house, but Kenny had the baby grand piano in the living room. And they used to slide down. It was like they knew it was fun. They would sit on the top and they'd slide down the baby grand piano. And they started building a nest under the stereo, and that was it. I said, no, you can't do that. You can't live here. You can't. But they never pooped in the house or anything. They would go outside and poop. They were great. And then one year, Monster Pigeon comes back and Bernice is gone. And he sat on our ledge, and he was depressed the whole summer. He was like devastated. And I was like, oh my God, what happened to Bernice? So then he's gone again. Next summer he comes back with another female. And I had the window open. He brought the female. I'm not making this up. He brought the female into the living room, introduced me to this bird, and flew away and never came back. And I know it was the same pigeon because I never heard a pigeon coo like this. Coo! He's obviously. Anyway, I really liked having those pigeons in the house, except when they tried to build the nest under the stereo. That wasn't good.
Well, they knew a good spot when they found one.
Well, because I mean, who else lets pigeons in the house? Come on.
Tesla.
So yeah, I've nature's interesting. I think we're more I think we're more animals than we realize, and we're just annoying animals. That's what
There's a
we
lot
are.
of amazing animals out there.
Yeah, there are, and they're fun to watch. Pigeons are fun to watch. I don't know if you ever watched them. They're really entertaining.
Well, those puffin birds, how entertaining it is to watch those.
oh, those I've never seen one in real life.
Like I said, I'm around thousands and thousands of them, and they just
And do they just come through, or do they stay? Do
no, they
live
nest.
there?
They nest over there.
Oh,
so there's
awesome.
there's 500,000 of them, and they nest in this one big area. It's called Elliston Island, and I think they pair up for life too until one of them dies, and then they move on.
Yeah,
But
puffins are really cute.
Yeah.
They're really really cute birds.
yeah,
he,
they're
he,
very.
he took a picture of one puffin bird bringing another puffin bird a flower.
Yeah, yeah. They bring each gifts.
Oh, that
they
is
pick
so sweet.
like those they pick like those purple irises or whatever.
Yeah.
And they bring it to them.
Oh, that is the sweetest thing I've ever heard. That's really cute. Anyway, all right. So, do you have anything else on your list?
I do.
All right, go.
What do all these statements have in common? The shape of the planets, evolution, your body is made of cells, general and special relativity, germs can make you sick, the surface of the earth is made up of plates that shift around.
Well, everything's connected. Is that what you're trying to get at?
It depends. I want to hear what other people
Okay.
think. What do all those statements have in common?
Have to think about it. Everything is spherical.
Wow, that was pretty good.
Pattern recognition.
How about you, James?
I can't see I see a definite pattern because there are certain things that wouldn't follow the pattern that I would look at for other things.
It came up in a debate, and one of the people in the question and answer period said, "Gee, you believe in evolution, but let's face it, evolution is just a theory." And so the speaker said, "Well, let me tell you about all the things in science that are theories," and he listed these.
Oh,
He says, "Do you think those are all in doubt, just like you think evolution is in doubt?" He said, "In science, the word theory means there's been so much evidence
right.
that it is raised from a speculation and a hypothesis to the next
right.
level."
There's holes in evolution, but it's been pretty well documented through excavation of animal remain bones and some other tissue from that's been in bogs and stuff like that. There's been they saw the evolution of the birds on Galapagos Island that changed just because of the availability of food. They watched it. They watched it in real time.
They adapt.
They adapt, right? But they adapt. But then the next
They
generation
evolve into what
Right.
is for that
right.
for that area.
So it's pretty right. Yeah. Well, people that want to think that evolution is gravity is a theory. Do we you could say, well, there could be a magnetic force at the center of the earth holding us down.
No.
Right, but there's no proof for that, or there's nothing that we can say.
But the theory of gravity is only on Earth, not.
Right, because
What?
Well, there's slight gravity on other planets, but there's got to be.
but it's not the same gravity.
What
Well,
do you know?
Gravity because
not
when
the
you're
same.
out in space,
It's the same.
you're
Well, you're in
floating.
space. There's no gravity.
Do you know why the Earth has survived as long as it has?
Yes.
Because of Jupiter.
pulls everything away from it.
If the Earth is this big, Jupiter is this big, and every time there's an asteroid coming to
Yeah,
the
it
Earth,
goes,
the
yeah.
gravity of Jupiter pulls it away.
So
But
it's got
space- but
stronger-
space has no
stronger
gravity.
Yeah, right.
Space has no gravity.
But what if
It's a
if
hard one to talk about.
right? If you're in space and you're floating,
Yeah.
that it's zero gravity.
Oh, that's what you mean.
Yeah, zero gravity. So,
Oh.
so yeah, you're not moving unless you're propelled by something. Gravity's not going to suck you one way
I
or
guess,
the other.
I guess you
Right.
have to have a mass
Right.
in order to have gravity.
That's true.
Okay, so that's where, but that's good. That was very nice of Jupiter to do that for us because we're
Continuing to do it.
continuing to do it
Yeah.
because otherwise, well, I don't think we're
Makes you wonder, right? The planet Earth. So here you have the Earth, and you have all the billions and zillions of planets and galaxies out there, and it's like if you took all the sand on this planet and took one grain, that's the Earth.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Makes you
And-
wonder what's it
and
all for, right?
It might not even
Ooh.
be that much.
You'll never get an answer to that one,
Yeah.
but
Well, I just enjoy life. I enjoy living. I enjoy things. I like walking around. I like feeling the air. I mean, just being alive is enough for me.
seeing
know.
things, seeing interesting things. And
Just experiencing life. I want to get as much in as possible because I know it's temporary. We talk about this all the time. Some people don't want to think about death because it scares them, but I like to think about death because it motivates me.
Well,
You know?
somebody said to me, are you grieving Russell's death? And I said, Russell and I talked about his death at least 50 times while he was alive.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it happened, it seemed like something to be expected.
Yeah,
I'm sure he talked to you about it too, right, James?
Always.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
We had a
didn't that
running-
affect the way you reacted when you found out that he was dead?
Well, we had a running thing that he was supposed to give the eulogy at my funeral.
Yeah. Did you know that James did that?
maybe he has one.
He said
pre-recorded for
James
you.
said to Russell.
did?
Oh, he did?
said,
Okay.
I have a gift for you. What did you put, 50 or $50 was it?
I don't recall.
He gave him like $50 and he said, I'd like you to make a video so I could play it at James's funeral.
Oh, well, I was-
And Russell said, I can't do
But
it for
the
50.
compensation was for the fact that the other person involved would not want him to do it unless there was compensation.
Oh.
So I was really compensating the other person and not Russell
But,
because I
but
know Russell would
didn't
do
think
it.
it was enough money to do it.
Russell felt that it was a dishonorable thing to do such a thing for money.
Oh, for money.
So he did it right without money?
I believe he gave it back,
Yeah.
but he got permission to give it back.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because everybody thinks differently about stuff like that. So
But when somebody prepares you for their death and then finally they
Yeah.
it's easier.
I think when people have a realistic outlook of death, and you, I don't know. I mean, I want people. I'm not saying I want them to be happy because I'm dead, but I would like people to be happy because when I was alive, I was alive. I that's why I want to do that thing where I have everybody playing cowbell at my funeral, along with me. In fact, one of these days we got to get around to doing that video. So I want everybody to play a cowbell at my funeral so that they can't possibly cry while they're playing the cowbell.
So do you think there's something after you die somewhere, or are you just like, okay, I'm here, I'm gone, and that's the end of it?
I don't know, Paul.
No, I know you don't know. Nobody knows,
Well,
but-
right, but what I'm saying is,
He's
it
wondering
doesn't.
what is probably true in your mind.
It
Yeah.
it doesn't matter to me if there's anything else.
Right.
This is enough.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean,
I don't need anything else. But if there's if your molecules go somewhere, if your consciousness goes someplace, it'd be interesting. I'd be interested in seeing that. That would be fun. It would be like going on a new trip. But I don't see it as a necessity or as something that I have to hang on to because I'm scared to die, because I'm not.
Oh yeah, me either.
Yeah.
And what about your question, Paul? Is it probably true that there is something that continues in your mind?
As an individual life, I think you're here, you exist, you do your thing, and that's the end of it. There's no afterlife. There's no heaven, no hell, none of that. I mean, it's just so bizarre. I mean, we think, the human race thinks like we think, but doesn't mean there's not something or other life forms that are more intelligent or less intelligent. It's all drilled into our head already that, okay, we exist, and we were always taught when we were growing up, well, there's a God and there's a hell and there's a heaven and all these things. And I never believed any of that. And I just says, well, we're here, do what you got to do, be a decent person, and whether you get anything afterwards for it, for your, being good and whatnot,
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't live my life thinking about
Right.
that type of thing. Like, well, if I do this wrong or do this
Yeah.
the right way, am I going to be
The
rewarded?
my idea is even if there was a heaven and hell, if you only did things to get into heaven, because you were scared of going to hell, that wouldn't
Be a boring world.
it wouldn't be valid. You've got to do this stuff out of the goodness of yourself, whether or not there's a heaven or hell. And
Right.
the thing is, nothing else makes sense to me for a reason for life except that we are all here and we're all going to suffer. And if you can help make somebody's life less suffering in somebody's life, you've done the right thing. If you make more suffering in someone's life, you're doing the wrong thing.
Right.
And you're making yourself miserable. I feel good when I do good things for people, and I know other people who are the same way.
Right.
And I know people who are miserable bastards who keep doing bad things to people, and it doesn't make them happy. So why are they doing it?
Why does anybody do anything, right? It's just
Here's an interesting cartoon. Tell me what you think of it.
Okay.
Al, you spent your whole life resisting earthly temptations. Welcome to heaven. And he gets in and he says, finally, all those years of celibacy were worth it. And then comes the next person. Brad, one time you let your roommate finish a jar of olives. Welcome to heaven. And then the first guy looks over like, you got in on something so trivial.
And I could have had sex all that time.
So I've been asking religious people, does guy number one have the right to be resentful?
There's no.
And nobody will answer that. These people who believe in the afterlife, they're afraid to answer that question.
Yeah, I'll answer it for you. If resentment is one of the things that makes you unhappy. If you're in heaven, what would the point be of?
yeah. If you're already there, who
You're
cares?
in.
Yeah.
You're in. Who cares? I mean, and don't. And this is something I used to argue with my sister, who was very religious, the one that passed away. She used to say, "Oh, it's a sin. It's a sin to have sex outside of marriage." And I said, "Well, let me ask you, Marie. God gave us this gift, right? God decided this is how we were going to procreate, and He made it pleasurable." And she says, "Yes." And she says, "Within the confines of marriage." And I said, if He gave us this gift, and the people who haven't yet gotten married,
Right.
it would be like throwing it in His face and saying, I'm not going to use this beautiful gift you gave me. It's like a kid throwing a toy train back in his father's face and saying, I'm not going to use this toy train, and making his father feel really bad. I said, God really feels bad if we don't use our sexual parts to have fun. and she didn't like that.
So who married the first two people?
Well, exactly.
Right.
There's no right. But my sister was she had a lot of very serious religious hang-ups. Why would you throw that gift back in the face of
Religion and
God?
politics. Everybody has their own opinion. You can argue that till you die.
Of course.
Yeah. So.
And I wish I had faith. I wish I did believe in God, because it would make life easier. I wouldn't feel that responsibility of my own existence on me. I'd say, oh, put myself in the hands of God, and people do that, and it relieves them somehow. But I don't have that. You can't get it if you've lost it. You can't get it back. It's not like losing a coin. Once you figured it out, you can't go back.
May I have a minute?
Please
Yes.
take a minute.
Just 1 minute.
We're counting down.
Let me just say that the two people in the illustration are playing two different games. And I would say that you can kind of refer to the Bills-Bengals game of this past season, because the rules would state that at the time that the referees said, we're going to take a 15-minute break and we're going to come back to the game. What happened was the Bills left the field and went to their dressing rooms. The Bengals took their lead from the Bills and also went to their dressing room. Now, the Bills called the Players Association and said, we don't want to go back out to the field until we know the condition of our lost man. And when the 15 minutes was over, the officials said, come on, we're ready to restart the game, come out to the field. And the Bills and Bengals refused to answer the call. Not even when the commissioner of football called and said, get your ass back on the field. Now, here's the thing. If any 11 Bengals walked out to the field, they would have won the game by forfeit. No 11 Bengals would walk out onto the field to take the win, which completely screwed up the season. And both teams were penalized by the league because either the Bengals or the Bills were going to be the number one seed going into the playoffs. And because neither of them would cooperate with the rules of the game, the league said, fine, neither of you will be the number one seed. We're going to give that to Kansas City. And if either of you plays Kansas City, it won't be at home. It'll be at a neutral site or in Kansas City, and that's what you get.
So are you saying that the commission was playing God?
They
Yeah.
certainly did. But the point is this.
Fascinating.
The point is this. If they played by the rules of the game, either both teams would have come back to the field and finished the game,
Or one word.
or the Bengals would walk out, take the forfeit, and go on to be the number
But
one
wouldn't
seed.
that be unethical for the Bengals to come back?
They should
out
have. I
on
think they
this?
should
The
have.
Bengals said, not like this.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that it was a choice, an ethical choice based on the life of this young man.
Certainly. But if the guy got in off giving up the olives, well, that's okay.
I think
Because
it's
I
fine.
walked out on the field, I took the forfeit, and I'm the number one seed in the playoffs. Damn it.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, obviously, I think both guys. First of all, I think that the guy that was celibate all his life, they shouldn't have let him in. I think
There are many ways to win the game,
Right.
Paula.
okay, and I think that he forfeited his. I think he should have gone to purgatory or whatever they used to have, like not hell, and not heaven. But
He wasn't going to find a
Well-
woman to be fruitful and multiply with anyway.
Well, purgatory was the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. It was like,
Oh,
here,
I
let's
know.
suffer for a while before we'll let you in. You know, it's like, yeah, I know.
well, I know, and we had to spend a lot of time praying for those people in
Right.
purgatory.
Yeah, that's what a joke.
It's like, we all, 30 seconds, I've been told by the drummer. So, yes, so I am going to say goodbye and say thank you very much, all of you, for coming today. And, that was really interesting that you were on location and then you walked into the room. I found,
I flew in 2,000 miles just to be here.
and, right, so you said you were doing some errands, and here you are.